It has been 25 months since the last season of Andor released. I have stayed up late at night, every night, wondering when that second season is gonna come out. At 2 in the morning on Wednesday night, I got to watch that season for the first time. And oh my god, it's everything I've ever dreamed of.
We're getting away. They'll never catch us now.
Because it made me want to go out and punch a Nazi after every single episode.
Since when are you drinking spiced tea?
When?
Until Wednesday, I hadn't watched Star Wars in 2 years. It is so good to be back, let me tell you. Every time I've watched a show or a film for my entire life, I have told people, I don't mind if you spoil the ending for me, because I don't care. I don't enjoy films and TV that much. Why should I bother with getting spoiled? Well, Andor Season 2 is the first time in my entire life where I would tell somebody not to spoil the ending for me, because I love this show more than any other show I've ever watched. But first, I think we have to address the elephant in the room. Syril Khan? Okay, so I'm not sure why he's living with Dead Ramiro, okay? Either they're roommates or they're dating or married. Like, I'm gonna cross my fingers and hope they're roommates, okay? Because, my god, did you see their chemistry in the last season?
Are you stalking me?
I know you work here, and I come sometimes to see if I'll see you. Being in your presence, I've realized that life was worth living.
I could have you arrested, you're aware of that.
And they get ready for Dedra to meet Edie Khan, which is Cyril's mum. And, the conversation between Edie, Syril and Dedra is the single most awkward interaction I've witnessed in my entire life. I audibly laughed when I first watched this scene. I really did. I was watching this scene with my parents, okay? I spent the entire time either giggling, chuckling, or laughing, okay? And they was like, Ben, what are you laughing at? I'm like, do you see his face? Do you see his face? I waited 2.5 years for this show. Right, I'm done making fun of them. I'm not going to labour the point. What's next on my list? I'm going to talk about B for a bit, okay? So first, let me show you the cutest scene ever, where B babysits little children.
We're getting away. They'll never catch us now.
My god! He's the babysitter you never had! What? Isn't that the cutest thing ever? He's playing with kids! Oh my god, look at that lovely walker toy. That's amazing! So I really like the way they portray C2B5 in this, okay? Most of the time in Star Wars, the droid isn't really treated with as much respect as you would treat a human character, is it? Like, sure, R2-D2 is one of the main characters in Star Wars, everybody loves him, but when something tragic happens, or when a character dies, it's all the human characters, the main characters, that are going to be affected by it. They're going to focus on the reaction of the main characters. It's very rare that R2-D2 gets to show that much emotion. But with C2B5, on the other hand, when Marva dies, they let him grieve about it. He needs a full day to grieve about it.
We're gonna take her out in a minute, if you want to say goodbye. I'll have them clear the room, if you want to be alone.
I don't want to be alone. I want Mama Marva.
And C2B5 loves his friend Brasso so much that when Brasso and Bix have to, separate from C2B5 and not see him for a couple days, it's very difficult for them to break the news to him.
Who's gonna tell him?
I'll do it.
C2B5 is treated by the other characters with much more respect, I think, than any droid in the history of Star Wars has ever been treated, at least on screen.
We won't be away long.
It's too long already.
Talia has your charger.
That is not the kind of language you use when you are lending an Amazon Echo to a friend. That is the kind of language you use when you are leaving your child to be babysitted by their grandma. The other thing that I really liked about B is that B can talk, and the reason I find that important is if something is completely unhuman, it's very hard to empathise or relate or identify with that character. For instance, R2-D2 or BB-8. I mean, there are people who really like those characters and find them cute, but it is slightly harder to root for and empathise with a character that neither looks human nor sounds human. So that's why it's a very good thing that I think they made B able to talk like a human, like in English, or basic as they call it in the galaxy. It just humanised the character a lot more, and I liked that. speaking of B, here's a thing that you're only going to notice on the second time viewing. So you see here that Bix warns Brasso to make sure that B doesn't see him doing the thing that he's doing.
B sees you doing that, he's in a panic.
He's off with Talia and his buddy.
But the first time you watch it, you're not quite sure what Brasso's actually doing. But then we see them sadly break the news to B that, hey, we're going to have to leave you alone for a bit.
Talia has your charger.
And then on the second time you watch the show, you realise, oh wait a minute, he's packing up his charger. Just little things like that that you only notice on the second viewing. There's a couple.
They're sneaking in Skull and Surprise. I'm sure you've heard what it is by now.
Is it really a shandy mal?
Earlier on in the episode, I think episode 3 or something, you hear of a shandy merle and you're like, what the hell is that? I have no idea. And then, later on in the show, you see them unveil the shandy merle.
Yes, it is real. This is a Shandy Merle. It's a temple figure, one of 12.
You're not going to go, oh, that's what a shandy merle is, because you don't remember the line about a shandy merle, do you? You're not going to remember it on the first time watching, but then, on the second time watching, you see the line about the shandy merle, and you're like, oh, so that's what they were talking about in that first scene, which I completely forgot about. Whee! I don't know why, but the shandy merle bit just made me happy, and I'm not sure we're supposed to. I think the writer of this show probably intended for the shandy merle to make me uncomfortable, but no, it made me happy. Okay, I can't film this all in one go, I gotta decide what I'm gonna cover. So, I've covered B, I've covered things you only notice in the second round, I've laughed at Syril Khan. Okay, I'm gonna do one more thing, and I'm going to shoot the next bit later. The dancing! Did you see the dance in episode 3, okay? In like the second half of episode 3, they constantly, every time a major plot point happens, at the end of that plot point, they just cut to a scene like Mon Mothma dancing. And it's because everything's gone to shit for her right now, everything's going awfully. And she's freaking out and panicked and worrying, and all she can do is wave her arms in the air like she just doesn't care. So first of all, I want to say that this scene is probably a lot more important for just the history of the Star Wars galaxy than people are giving it credit for. So for those of you that don't know, in Star Wars, the Rebel ships were always a lot better than the Imperial ships. However, the Imperial fighters were a lot more numerous, okay? So it was quantity over quality versus quality over quantity. And the Empire liked being able to mass produce loads and loads of fighters, because that allowed them to create lots of jobs for the people of the galaxy, keep them happy. The Rebellion, on the other hand, didn't have that many resources, and so it couldn't focus on quantity, it had to focus on quality. Meaning the Rebel ships had a lot of things that TIE fighters didn't have, like hyperdrives, and shields, and heavy weapons, and a life support system. Now there were a few limited scale attempts for the Empire to build a much better fighter that would have a chance in a one-on-one fight against the Rebel fighters, but most of these never got off the ground because they didn't have a lot of support. The Empire was too busy pouring their resources into things like the Death Star, and all these big Star Destroyers that were going to scare people into submission. Rah, look at how scary we are. We've got a big Super Star Destroyer. For instance, the TIE Defender was one such attempt to make a bigger and better fighter that could actually challenge the Rebel ships in a one-on-one duel. If this thing had been mass-produced, the Rebellion wouldn't have stood a chance. Luckily, the only factory that ever produced these TIE Defenders was destroyed in a Rebel attack, and they managed to disappear the only member of the Imperial High Command that actually supported them. Why am I mentioning this? Well, I'm mentioning this because the ship that Andor stole also appears to have been an attempt to make a more competent fighter that could actually take on a Rebel ship in a one-on-one engagement. Luckily what happened is Cassian stole the only prototype and heavily damaged the hangar, and presumably Cassian set the project back so far that it didn't have enough support to get back up and running, and so he prevented that fighter from being mass-produced and saved the Rebellion. And he did save the Rebellion because this might be the most overpowered TIE fighter, or fighter in general, that I have ever seen, apart from maybe the TIE Defender. Let's just run a hypothetical scenario in our heads right now. We have 2 TIE fighters being flown by 2 trained TIE fighter pilots who are in a strategic advantage due to their position in the battle, versus one other ship flown by somebody who does not know how to fly it, who is at a strategic disadvantage due to his position in the battle. Who do you think wins? Well, if any other ship in the galaxy is on that side of the screen, it would be those guys. This ship was flown by a pilot so poorly trained to fly it, He had literally crashed it twice in the past 5 minutes and kept hitting it into a wall. But Andor was blessed with the fact that out of every ship in the galaxy he could have stolen, he stole the single most overpowered fighter in the entire universe. And that's what allowed him to just about win. Sorry, I just thought it was interesting how overpowered the ship was. Now we get into like one of the very few parts of the show that I didn't like, and that's when he hits the arch or whatever, or the tunnel, and all the stuff comes crashing down and destroys the TIE fighters. I didn't like this that much, simply because this is the kind of, trick shot you would see in an action film, in a flashy action film. And I'm not saying that's bad, I just don't think that's the vibe that Andor is supposed to give off, but maybe I misinterpreted the show, not sure about that. But overall, I did like the escape sequence, so good acting, but the other reason I really liked this scene was that it, like the rest of the show, but especially this, was perfectly designed to keep you on the edge of your seat the entire time. Everything that could possibly goes wrong, goes wrong. He gets the wrong ship that he's not been trained to fly, so he has to learn off the cuff, accidentally flies it backwards, struggles to control it, then a guy with a rocket grenade shoots at him. He crashes again, and you genuinely don't think he's going to make it out of there alive, and you know he is. He's got plot armor. No gun in the galaxy can break plot armor, but I just loved how they had so many things go wrong for him. A thing you may have noticed in the last season of Andor is that Andor always has his eyes peeled, not just for danger, but for an opportunity to escape. In every single scene, he spends the entire time looking around to take in all the information in the room so that if he ever gets a chance to escape, he can use that, and if a chance to escape ever shows up, he will take it immediately. And that's because he's been fighting to survive his entire life, okay? He's in the habit of looking around and looking at absolutely everything, because if he wasn't, he'd die. So, when he gets captured on Yavin 4, and an opportunity to escape rears its head, he takes that within a matter of seconds. Now, he had absolutely no way of knowing that that firefight was about to break out. He probably noticed the guy pointing a gun, but that still only gives him a few seconds of warning. However, as soon as the firefight started, he realised that this was an opportunity to escape, and so he ran for it, and he didn't make it. But it's okay that he didn't make it, because the point of the scene wasn't to have him escape. The point of the scene is to show that Andor is always watching. Andor is always looking for an opportunity to escape. And ultimately, that's why he wins. Now, there is the alternate fan theory, is that Andor is just really experienced with life or whatever, and he understood from the start that this rebel cell was going to fight each other. He knew how to tell if people hated each other, a firefight was going to break out. So it is possible that he just read Lord of the Flies the other day or something and knew that this group of people were going to fight each other. And that's possible these two did hate each other, and if he did know they were about to fight each other, then he would have known in advance that he was eventually going to get an opportunity to escape, and that was when they fought each other. But there is the alternate theory that he just saw an opportunity to escape and took it. I will say, the arguments between these two were cringy, shall we say?
You got 15 blasters pointed at you right now. Don't tell him that. He's surrounded. He needs to know it.
The number? The actual number?
Are you kidding?
You are talking to the enemy.
I knew you would do this.
And, I know they're supposed to be, painted as pathetic children who don't know how to run a rebellion, and I understand that for the plot to work, you do have to create conflict within these people somehow, but could you not have written, slightly less second-hand embarrassment-inducing arguments? I'd also like to point out, just for the record, these people are probably going to resort to cannibalism in a matter of days. When Andor abandons them on the planet, they don't have any food. They're going to resort to cannibalism, I'm sorry. Of course, it is perfectly possible that Andor could, contact Luthen and send somebody to go and rescue them or something, but I don't believe that. I think the whole point of Andor is to show that sometimes you have to sell people out to succeed in a rebellion, okay? Like you see in the last season, Luthen sold somebody out for the rebellion.
But know the choice. Do we let Krieger go down and play the long game? Or do we warn him and throw away a source that's taken years to cultivate?
Then they're also going to kill this guy because he's a liability. Full spoilers, by the way. Of course, that's just what you have to do sometimes if you want to win a rebellion. So I don't think anyone's coming to save them. These people are going to be left to die, they're going to resort to cannibalism, and they're going to starve. I also love how you can see them deteriorate over the course of the show. He goes from this big, strong, muscular man to, being a little more skinny, and then this guy just, has his eyes rolled the entire time, even though he's about to go into battle. That's terrifying stuff, my god. And of course, Andor isn't going to hesitate to leave them behind, because he can't hesitate. Andor knows that if he hesitates, he dies. He's had to kill so many people to survive in his life, and so he's gotten to the point where he doesn't have to think about it. And everyone was probably yelling this at the screen. They could have just escaped, by the way. They had a pilot, they had a functioning ship. The problem is they didn't trust each other to come back for each other, and so, unfortunately, despite having all the resources they needed to survive, they didn't. They died. They starved. Also, guys, why are you shooting the ship? If the ship gets destroyed, none of you live, so, like, what's the point? The one last thing I want to discuss relating to this scene is how on earth did he get, like, the dinosaur animal or whatever it was to attack? Like, it seems like Andor knew how to trigger that animal into attacking. Like, it can't have just been a coincidence that the animal chose to attack at the same moment that Andor needed a diversion. But I'm just not sure how Andor would have triggered the diversion. And we don't see. So I can only assume, was there a coincidence? You might notice a bit of a lighting change over the course of this video. That's because I filmed the first shot of this video at 10 in the morning yesterday, and I'm filming this bit at 6 in the afternoon today, so that's why. I've got 3 things to talk about, so let's go on. The thing I really loved about this show was the sheer attention to detail. Like, for instance, there's this line in episode 2 where they ask, do you take credits here?
Do you take credits? Can do.
And on the surface, this seems like a trivial line, like, do you accept this currency in this shop? But when you think about this line for a second, you realise that actually has a lot of implications for the location of this planet in the galaxy. Like, let's face it, we all knew that this planet was an outer rim backwater, okay? Like, we knew vaguely where this planet was in the galaxy, but this line reminded us of it. It's a well-established fact in Star Wars that quite a lot of planets in the Outer Rim sometimes don't accept credits for a currency.
Republic credits are no good out here. I need something more real.
So the fact that he even has to ask, can you accept credits, indicates vaguely that this is an Outer Rim backwater planet. And once again, because of the plot of the show, we all implicitly knew that, but But it's the attention to detail that I love. I also love how you can tell how many missiles this TIE fighter has fired and how many it has left just by counting the numbers that you can visibly see. Like with most fights in Star Wars, you can't tell from the outside how much ammo it has left. But with this one, you can just tell because the ammo rack is on the outside. I don't know if it was a prop or CGI, but that means they had to, change the prop between takes. Because the crew on this show are just the kind of people who cannot resist the urge to put that little bit of extra effort in just so you can tell they had fun making this. And then you have this line that Luthen Rael says when they introduce the party scene.
Well, it's a proud tradition in our family. We've all treasured our naval service.
And where are you stationed? I've been training on Steergun, but we're all being transferred now. Really? Where's everyone going?
Luthen is obviously tricking this guy into giving out information that he probably shouldn't give. Now, I can pretty much guarantee you that this line is going to be completely unimportant to the plot, and Luthen is never going to use this piece of intelligence in his life. So, why did they bother putting the line in? Why did they bother showing Luthen gain the information? The point isn't to progress the plot. The point of this is to show that Luthen never stops gathering information. Every conversation he's in, he'll use that as an opportunity to gather information. Even if he doesn't need it, he can still write it down in the books just in case. This indicates he's a workaholic revolutionary. He doesn't take a break. His life is his work. His hobby is his work. He said it in the last season. He said, I burn my life for a sunset I'll never ever see.
I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see.
Editing Ben here. I just realised that Luthen is going to die this season. Technically, I don't know for certain, I don't have hard evidence, but in the last season, he did say, I burn my life for a sunrise I know I'll never see. So I think that's probably foreshadowing that he really is never going to see the sunrise. He's going to die this season. And I think that makes a lot of sense, because Luthen's a guy who spent his entire life doing absolutely nothing but being part of the rebellion. So I think it's only fitting that he would be willing to die for it. But yeah, Luthen is dead. Luthen is so cooked. Oh my god, what if he literally burns? Like, I don't know how he's going to die, but he might burn to death. Actually, while we're speculating about which characters are going to die, I would like to point out that this show is never ever going to get a season 3, and most of the characters in Andor do not appear in any other season. So you know what? Let's go for it. I think Bix is going to die, I think Dedra is going to die, I think Will is going to die, and I think Syril Khan and Andor are going to be fine. We know that Andor's fine. I think Syril, I get like the he's going to be okay vibe from him. Unfortunately, because he's the one character that nobody likes. The other bit of attention to detail is you notice that in this bit, Mon Mothma clearly realises, oh my god, something bad has happened. But you don't quite know what it is. What did she see? What did she realise? So in the course of one shot, she walks down to the landing pad, she sees Luthen coming out, and you realise, oh my god, in this shot, she must have seen Luthen's ship, and she was coming down to greet him. They don't have to show us Luthen's ship for us to know that that's exactly what Mon saw. This is polar opposite to The Rise of Skywalker. Jenny Nicholson made this point in her coverage of The Rise of Skywalker. In The Rise of Skywalker, whenever they touch down on a planet, they have to have a long shot of them and the ship, so we know how they got onto the planet. Otherwise, we'd have, like, no idea how they arrived on the planet. But this show, on the other hand, trusts us to understand basic things. Like, in this scene, Cassian is communicating with Luthen's friend over the phone.
It's very crowded there right now.
And they never explicitly mention the Empire or the Rebellion, just because this is an authoritarian state. People could always be listening. You can't explicitly say things. But the show trusts us to fully understand that when they say crowded, what they mean is, oh, the Empire's there. The other time this happens was in season 1 of the show, when Luthen was talking with his friend, and obviously they're discussing the capture and murder of Andor, but they have to say it in the form of a riddle in case anybody's listening.
I'm most curious about the other piece.
You should come home.
Is it no longer available?
No, it's very much on the table. The negotiations are ongoing and our representatives are involved, but there's a number of other buyers on the ground and your presence would only complicate the bidding at this point.
I often struggle to remember that, hey guys, Luthen's meant to be a good guy, right? Like, I know he is, for the plot and canonically, a member of the Rebellion, he's a good guy, but with the amount of manipulation and lying and betrayal this guy has to do, you sort of forget that he's supposed to be a good guy character. You know what I mean? Oh, and here's the other interesting bit that happens on Chandrila. The culture is just enough like what you would expect to see on Earth that you can understand what's going on, but it isn't too different that it's just disinteresting. Listen, I cannot speak to other cultures. Maybe there is a culture out there that has a wedding that's just formed exactly like this wedding that we see on Chandrila, but considering how creative the people who work on the show are, I think more likely they modelled the wedding on Chandrila after the sort of customs that many cultures have on Earth. For instance, we have the father giving the daughter away, we have the daughter being led into the room by one of the parents, then we have the I do rituals, and the other part of Chandrilan culture that was similar enough to Earth but not too dissimilar was the shot glasses. Like, the shot glasses were designed smaller than what we have on Earth, and with a different design, like that's got a full lower half. But you can still tell it's a shot glass. Like, we know what's going on here. Now, some people probably want Leader, that's Mon Mothma's daughter, to realise that she's in a loveless marriage and divorce or annul this guy. That's probably not going to happen. The message this show is trying to get across is that when you're doing a revolution and you're serious about winning, you're going to have to make sacrifices. In this case, Mon Mothma's going to have to betroth her daughter to a loveless marriage, just like she was. So no, I think that if Leader divorced this guy and got her happily ever after with another man or another woman, you know, that would completely destroy the message of the show. So no, I don't think this plotline is going to get a happy ending, and I would say that I hope it isn't going to get a happy ending in true Star Wars fashion, but equally, I think the writers on this show are so good that whatever they do, they're probably going to do it in a good way. So if they do find a way to make Leader divorce this guy, they're probably going to do it well. Okay, last of all, here's a couple things that I don't really understand the meaning of, but they had a meaning. Like this shot right here, where Syril, you know, twists a fork. That shot had a meaning. Like, there was a reason they put that shot in there. They didn't consciously decide to put that there for no reason. But for the life of me, I cannot think of a reason that they put that there. Like, maybe he wanted his house to be tidy, perhaps? Because you don't put that in there by accident, there's a reason for it. And the other one is when she sternly said, "Wait, you are to stand behind me."
Wait. You're to stand behind me.
You don't write that line in there for absolutely no reason. There was a purpose to that line, but once again, I just can't think of what it is. So, in conclusion, yeah, those are my thoughts on the new Star Wars Andor.